You can't play. You can't tease with it. You can't spend a little time with it thinking that you can play with it when you want to, and then you can get away from it when you want to, because the devil has a way of trapping you and tricking you and getting you caught up into something that you'll get yourself stuck in. And that's what Paul is simply trying to say. He says you can't go back. But then he points to the idea. I want to jump over 9a and come back to that as my final piece in this passage, but I want to look at 9b. If you look at verse number 9, the B portion of verse number 9, he says, or rather he says, how is it that you turn back to the weak and worthless elemental things which you desire to be enslaved all over again? This idea of turning back carries with it the idea to return to a point where you once have been. And when he talks about this, he uses it in the present tense to suggest that it's an action that's in process. What's strange about this, when you look at this exegetically, is that God, through the work of the Apostle Paul, has lifted them and brought them out of bondage. They were in bondage. And God has literally brought them out of bondage. But Paul says in the text, in the latter portion of verse number 9, he says, how is it that you turn back again to weak and worthless elemental things which you desire to be enslaved? How is it that you want to go back to being incarcerated by the enemy? When God has opened the door, he has brought you out, how is it that it seems that you are more attracted to the stuff that had you bound? And you know what? Some of us, we enjoy the liberation, but the attraction for the stuff that enslaved us still bothers us at times. I mean, I know you don't want to say men too much in here because you want us to think you got it all together. And you want us to believe that you are straight and that you don't have any struggles. But Paul is saying, I'm trying to keep you from this apostasy, this going back. See, real apostasy versus temporary backsliding would suggest this. Maybe you've never been saved. Because watch this. When you've truly been saved, when you've truly been converted and delivered, you can't go back. When you truly been saved, when you truly been delivered, and what Paul is arguing for is that he is suggesting that I may not know. I'm not saying that I have infallible knowledge and wisdom, but what I do know is this: that you can't go back when God has truly brought you out. And sometimes we've got to be very honest and we've got to be very real. We don't like to be real with people. Some people come through the door and they come down the aisle and they shake the preacher's hand and they go through orientation and they get baptized, but they never had an encounter with Christ. We need to be real with it. And guess what? There are some people who show up every week and sit in seats of power and position, but they've never had a conversion experience. Because watch this, when you've been converted and when you've been changed, conviction just keeps you from just doing some stuff. See, when you've been convicted, you may mess up, but you feel the pressure and the pain of messing up. But when it just becomes who you are. I know that's tight, but it's right. It's hard, but it's fair. Because we have a dynamic that we are so image conscious. that we want to look like we have it together. But God is a divine cardiologist. He penetrates the external and sees the internal. And that's all Paul is simply saying to these Galatian believers. He says in the text, he says, how is it? Because if you read, and I'll go back to 9:8 in a minute, but he says, how is it that you want to go back when you've been brought out?